Hello everyone, and welcome back to Full Recovery. I'm here today with my dear friend Linda Vaprezsan, and we are sitting in her church auditorium, the Metro Baptist Church of Belleville, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. We are here for their ladies meeting, which is called Wonderland, and this was begun 22 years ago.
Yes.
And the very first speaker here was a lady named Marlene Evans. And for some of you, you're probably wondering why I'm speaking about her like that, but there are so many new Christian women or women who've never heard her, never heard of her, never heard her speak, never read one of her books. And she was just a fantastic lady.
Yes.
And I know she was a very good friend of yours.
Yes.
So can you talk about some of those meetings early on, some of those early years? Because now we're here 22 years later, and it's such an exciting time, but that legacy continues from all those years ago.
Oh my goodness. It was amazing because we thought when we started the first one, it was going to be a mini spectacular, and some of the older women will remember the spectaculars, and so we called it a mini spectacular. And Mrs. Evans came, and I will never forget, because Mrs. Evans, she was such a wonderful speaker, writer, etc. And I had the privilege of typing up her notes that she brought 2 hours before she was going to speak, and it was kind of an interesting thing. But
you typed them from her handwriting?
Yes, her handwriting.
Wow.
Yes, it was interesting.
Wow.
But one of the things, the very first one I will never ever forget is I got extremely ill on Friday night. And I do have a tendency to get bronchitis this time of the year. And all of a sudden I woke up in the middle of the night with a fever.
That's not good.
No, and I knew immediately, and I sat there in my bed sobbing, like, because I'm not going to be able to go. I can't go. I can't do this with 103 temp. And that was before COVID days, folks. So, I was like panicked. Well, I was so sick, and I called my daughter-in-law, Jennifer, and I said, it's all yours. The very first meeting. And so, of course, Jennifer ran it, and it went great. And Mrs. Evans came over to my house afterwards. And she said, I want to commend you because not too many people would have said, I'm not going to go for my first meeting. And that meant a lot to me because I was really having a hard time struggling with not being there. But it was a great meeting, and we've had so much fun with the different themes. And of course, this is Amy's 20th year being here. And I mean, it's just been overwhelming, the response of the women. And this year, I know we would have had double the amount of ladies we're going to have just because of the virus and everything else going around us. But people have been so good, so gracious, and so kind. And I have such a wonderful staff that does such a great job of decorating, such wonderful helpers. And it's just really been a blessing.
It's always beautiful. But just the fact that it's always decorated for Christmas makes it so special. And it really is like you're walking into a winter wonderland.
That's our goal.
And I hope you're enjoying some of the pictures right now that are being shown. I took some time to take pictures of the decorations and video a little bit, so that's going to play while we're talking, and I hope you're enjoying that. It has been my privilege to be here every year since 2001. For several years, both of my daughters came with me. When they turned 13, I started bringing them with me. And now one is a mother and one just got engaged to be married. And actually, one year our son was here because our whole family came.
Right. I remember
so
that.
all three of my kids, even one that's male, have been here to Winter Wonderland. So it's a wonderful experience, and it's an honor and a thrill to get to be here.
Thank you.
I wish maybe if I can remember later on, I'll take a picture of the platform area so that you can see all the gifts that will be here at the start of the service, because every year Mrs. Vaprezsan takes some time to distribute gifts, and it's a wonderful time. She is, I think, the most generous person that I know, and I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and it's wonderful to be here again. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. We are so excited, and it's great to have a friend like Amy. This has been a great friendship. She's been there through ups and downs of my life, and I hope that I can be as good a friend to her as she has been to me.
You're a far better friend to me. and I'll fight you over it. No, it's been a wonderful, wonderful friendship. And I remember being in college, hearing the names, John and Linda Vaprezsan, and just thinking, oh, I hope I get to meet them one day. And not only did I meet them, but they are friends of ours, and I'm grateful for that. Would you tell our audience here how you came to know the Lord, what your early life was like, what God did to bring you to himself, your family, any history that you'd like to give in that arena?
Well, my family grew, let's put it this way. I grew up at First Baptist Church in Hammond, and my family attended church there. Back in those days, you only had one car in a family. So therefore, we had to ride Sunday school bus on the Sundays that my father worked. And the
I
stop,
don't think I ever knew that.
yes, the stop before ours was the Vaprezsan home,
Okay.
because his dad worked shift work also.
No way.
And so we rode the Sunday school bus together. And if you ask him, he says he can remember a little boy and little girl coming out of the house and her in her frilly dress getting on the bus. And Mr. Davis was our bus driver or bus captain. I don't know if they necessarily called them bus captains back then, because you called the church and said, we need a ride, and they picked you up.
Okay.
And so we rode the bus. And as time went on and going to church, Brother Hiles came when I was in 9th grade. And then we just started teen soul winning. And on the very first teen soul winning, my husband now, at that time, he was just a junior in high school. And Brother Hiles looks out at the crowd and he says, okay, have any of you boys got a car? And my husband goes, I do. He goes, okay, John, take 5 kids with you and pile in the car.
Okay.
And at that time, it was just kind of more like passing out tracts. We didn't do so much sewing, it was just passing out tracts. And so we all got in the car. And of course, I just got in the front seat, right next to the driver. And
No ulterior motive
no
behind
ulterior
that.
motive. I was only 14. I didn't know any better. And so that led to a wonderful, wonderful relationship, which we've now been married for 55 years. So that was the start. Of course, I thought I was saved as a child, but after Brother House came and I heard the preaching, I realized I wasn't. And when I was a senior in high school, I can remember saying to my mom, I don't think I'm saved. I don't think I'm saved. And she goes, well, then we better make sure. Well, the very next day I had a teen activity, and Jim Lyons was our assistant pastor and in charge of the activity. And so his wife was my piano teacher. And so I went to him, and in his office, he led me to the Lord. And from there on was history. You know, it just was part of my life. And I remember very much that time in November of 1963 that I got saved.
That's wonderful. Wow. So to have assurance of your salvation was crucial to your life and how your life would proceed.
Right, exactly.
So you were a teenager at First Baptist Church. You'd already met your husband. Obviously, you're dating and you're growing in your relationship. And when did you get married?
We got married in 1965. He was off at Bob Jones University at college, and I was going to go to college, and then God just kind of changed plans there, and we ended up getting engaged, getting married in the summer, and he went off for his senior year at college. And it was a great year and a half actually that we spent, because he ended up with a double major. And so we stayed there for a year and a half in Greenville, and it was such a wonderful experience for us, and get to work in the church there, and just for our marriage to grow. It was a great experience for us, and we really enjoyed that part of it. It was very different. And then we moved back to Hammond after he graduated, and my husband was a deacon at First Baptist, and we both taught Sunday school in the junior department, and we worked in the junior church with Mrs. Ann Schoaf, and then with the Lapinas. Brother and Mrs. Lapina were in charge of a junior church because they had to split it. It was too big, and so they split it, and we went with the Lapinas. And he led the singing, I did the piano playing, and Mr. and Mrs. Lapina made sure that they did the preaching, the telling the story, or flannel graph, or whatever they did. And So that was our life while we were at First Baptist, and we were just very involved in the church, in the ministry. And then they started the Christian school, and we put our oldest son in the Christian school. He was in K4. And that year, God called my husband to preach.
Wow.
And it was kind of a very shocking experience for me. I guess not really, because technically I had always prayed that I would be married to a preacher, but I knew that God had him in my life. So when he came home and he said, honey, I think you need to sit down. And he sat down, I stood up. And he said, God's called me to preach. And I said, okay, whatever God wants you to do, that's what we will do. And from there, he went to see Brother Hiles, and Brother Hiles suggested that because he had graduated with a double major and had so much Bible while he was at Bob Jones, that he suggested he wait till Hiles Anderson open and do the pastor refresher course for the 1 year, just to get some refreshing and then to know how to start a church. And therefore, he did that. He worked his job because he had a very good accounting job in Chicago. And I went to work at the school system. I worked in Hammond Baptist Schools, worked for Dr. Billings. And then when the college opened, I was the first secretary of Hiles Anderson College.
Wow.
And if anybody had sent letters in or wanted information on the college before it even opened, I was the one that answered all their letters.
How neat.
And so that was kind of a unique experience, a lot of fun. I got to put the first catalog together. And I can remember late at night working in the office with Dr. Billings and Dr. Helton and us putting together the schedule, and I thinking, this is great because I never went to college. And I thought this was so much fun. I'm getting to do this and getting to tell everybody else what to do. But it was a great experience, and I'm so grateful for that time. And then from there, when my husband started school and the college opened up, I went to work at Hammond Baptist Grade School, and I worked in the elementary school. I worked for Dr. Bob Billings. No, I don't know, one of them. I can't remember which one. And anyway, and so that was a great experience also.
So you said something a couple of minutes ago that I'm really glad you said, because it's something that I try to convey to young women, and that is to not look to marry a specific calling or career. And some young women do that. I'll only date and marry somebody who's this or who's going to be this.
Right.
And, everybody wants to serve the Lord, but the important thing, or, most young Christian people want to serve the Lord in some capacity, but the important thing is to find the man and let God determine what happens. And you are the perfect textbook case for that, because you said to your husband, whatever God wants, that's what we're going to do. I mean, when you married him, you did not dream of this.
No.
You thought that you would be, and yet you had prayed to marry a preacher. And so God just brought all of that together.
Yes, he did.
And I think that's pretty neat. The other thing I want to say is that I find it interesting that I've just never seen you say, oh, I can't do that unless it involves scissors, tape, or glue. But that is true. That is true. But the fact that you could, lay out a handbook and do all of those things. I mean, you were buying plane tickets online for yourself before I knew anybody else that was doing it.
Right.
And I've always been very impressed with your drive and your ambition to do things.
I used to do all of Dr. K-Lap's back and forth to China.
Wow. Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Wow. That's amazing. But moving on then to starting the church here. So he graduated, felt called to start the church here. And so now Metro Baptist Church has now been here for 47 years. Mm-hmm. 47 years.
Yes.
That is quite an accomplishment. In a day where pastors and their families stay 18 months, that's quite an accomplishment.
Well, you have to get to the point, and of course you've been at your church 20 some odd
years. Yeah. 26, yeah.
So
just a smidgen compared to you.
Right, but still, and those of you watching, you understand that when you go into the pastorate, if you go into it with the right attitude, you go into it for the long haul. You don't say, I'm going to just go for a couple years.
Right.
If you've decided that God wants you to be a preacher, then you're going to be a preacher. And you have to love all types of people. You can't be picky. You can't pick and choose who you like, who you don't like. When you become a pastor's wife and a pastor, you have to become tough-skinned. You can't let little things hurt you. And little things do. And I think, and this is probably one of my pet peeves right at the moment, of people ranting on Facebook about stuff that, as a pastor's wife, that should not be your job.
Right.
That should not be your job to rant.
Right.
That should be your husband's job. And so I have a lady that came up to me one time and she said, I am so sorry I offended you. And I looked at her and I said, I am so sorry, because if you did, I don't remember. And so please don't tell me what you said. And I tried to make it my point that I'll kind of let it go right over there. And if something comes up, if it's a big thing, then I will go to my husband or whatever. But I try very hard to take, sometimes with a grain of salt. Sometimes you accept things that you don't like to accept,
Right.
but you go on. Because otherwise, your church isn't going to succeed. And you're going to be constantly offended at everything. And you can't be. You have to be tough. I told the girls, a lady did a teaching class, and she wanted me to be online with them just to talk. Like, I think we Skyped. And she asked me about being a pastor's wife, and I said, well, number one, you cannot be high maintenance. If you are high maintenance, then your husband will not succeed necessarily. Not that he can't, but he will succeed only in spite of you.
Right. Right.
Because if you are high maintenance, his goal is going to be to make you happy, and sometimes you can never be made happy. And so you have to say, okay, Lord, my purpose is to be behind him and to submit to him and to be something that he can be proud of, and that if I get my way, fine, but if I don't, I'm not going to moan and groan and whine about it and let everybody in the church know that I didn't get my way.
Right. Right. And you do have to decide that you're doing it for the Lord.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, you're doing it for the Lord.
Right.
Because if you do it for people,
If you do it for people, it's not going to work.
yeah,
No.
it won't be long before you're not doing it for anybody.
Right. Well, and the thing is, people will always disappoint. People disappoint. People will hurt. Words hurt. And so you have to realize, and sometimes we as Christians can hurt more people than we think.
Right. Right.
You know, we think we're doing a good job, but sometimes we're really not. And so we have to be very careful. And I know I have to be very careful. I've had to apologize to people myself, right? Thinking, what? I didn't mean to say that.
Right.
And I have to be very careful with that.
You do, and I think you are an amazing lady at being yourself and being authentic, but not being hurtful, and not, there's a difference between, so many times we think of somebody who's transparent as they're just airing their dirty laundry, they're putting it all
Right.
out there. But Jesus was the most real being that's ever lived, but
Right.
you don't ever find him filing, his grievances or
Right.
grinding his
Exactly.
axes, or, he just didn't engage in that. So you can be a real, genuine Christian woman
Right. Yes.
without, being a drag and
Right.
being negative. And I think you're just amazing at that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try.
So when you start a church, your family is just by nature involved. They do cleanup, setup. Now, you were in a church building when you first started,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But still, there's a lot to do. And of course, kids provide special music and all of those things.
Right.
And they just sort of grow up doing it. And your three children are all today loving the Lord, faithful to church. You have a son that's a pastor. One of your sons is here, and your daughter, of course, lives in Illinois. But they all love the Lord, and just wonderful people.
Right.
And you have how many grandchildren?
We have 10 grandchildren and another one on the way. Wow. And we have 4 great-grandchildren with another one on the way.
Wow. Wow. It's hard for me to believe you're a great-grandmother because, because I knew you when.
Right, exactly. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Oh, but your grandkids and great-grandkids are just the cutest kids. I mean, I've said that to you many times. So they're just adorable. So cute. But you have a legacy while you're living of loving the Lord and serving Him, and I think it's just wonderful that you do have a son and his wife that are here. Todd and Katie are here,
right. Yes,
serving the Lord with you.
Our youngest son and his wife. There are 20 years difference basically in age between our oldest and our youngest son. That's why my grandchildren range in so many from ages. Our oldest grandchild is 28. The youngest grandchild is 1. So there is a big age there, but Todd and Katie he's our youth pastor, and they do so much around here, and they're such a blessing. And then our oldest son pastors in Arkansas, and he and his wife have quite a ministry there. They do a lot he started his own roofing business this last year, and he does a lot of community help. He tries to, in his business, he's tried to seek out people that need help, that don't get their roofs fixed because they can't afford it.
Okay.
And he makes it a community project.
What a blessing.
And so it's been quite a blessing. But anyway, they all love the Lord. And of course, our daughter works for Recovery Ministries in Rockford. And they are such a blessing to my husband and I. And my boys are so funny because I've been leaving them honey-do list every time they're in my house. And they think it's kind of a joke, like, oh, okay, here we go again. And our youngest said to me, he goes, Mom, this list is ridiculous. And I said, well, you have old parents. What do you expect? And so
chip in here.
You're right. So, but it's a great life. And I love having my family together, working together in the ministry, and they all love the Lord. And that's what's really so special.
That's wonderful. Now, last October of 2019, you received a diagnosis that was quite a shock.
Yes.
Would you talk about that a little bit, and then what has happened subsequently?
Well, in October 2019, I had gone for my normal mammogram, and it came back that it showed I had breast cancer. So they did surgery in November, and at that surgery, they found I had a second cancer. And they were kind of surprised at that. And I was with you when I got the phone call that they were going to have to send it off to another lab. And there's certain numbers they're looking for to whether you're going to do chemo, radiation, etc. Well, my numbers were not the greatest. But my she said to me, if your numbers are 25 or under, you'll do radiation. Over 25, you will do chemo and then probably radiation. And so when she called and my number was 36, my husband said, well, it wasn't at least 50. He said, we're still under 100. So, okay, we can get through this. And he's been such an encouragement. I can't even begin to tell you in the amount of time we have what all he's done for me in the past year, because it's more than most husbands signed up for. And it's been quite a chore, but he has been there. My children have been there. Our son that lives in Arkansas, he and his wife have flown in a few times. Our grandchildren from Arkansas have driven up. My granddaughter made meals to put in my freezer. My daughter-in-law in Arkansas made meals to put in my freezer. My daughter-in-law here is constantly, what can we get for you, Mom? Do we need this? And she would bring me different things that I would need or whatever. And of course, our Todd would run and get errands and do things for me all the time. And so, I mean, I've been very blessed with that aspect, that they were always right there. But then, of course, as the year goes on, and I am going to talk about this tomorrow morning when we do have our session tomorrow, but God had so many different roadblocks He's put in my way, but He's also led me to so many different people that I've been able to have a friendship with that I had not necessarily before because of the battle. And, you know, when you go through cancer, you need a friend. Yeah. You need someone who's been through it or going through it or whatever. And I had a dear pastor's wife call me, I want to say it was I went through, my chemo was in March and April. And I want to say it was toward the end of April, she called me and she had found out she had cancer. And she's locally, he lives around here. And so she asked me my opinion, and I gave her my opinion. And I told her, I said, but now you need to talk it over with your husband and your kids. And she's about my age. Okay. And so anyway, she chose not to do any treatment because hers was stage 4 and it was too far gone. And so she died in September, I want to say. And it was September, I believe it was. And it was sad, but I was grateful for her that she decided, she knew that any treatment would not heal her. It would just prolong. And so she decided she wanted to have the summer at their cabin up north with all of her children, her grandchildren, and be together and enjoy that one last time. And so that's what she did. Wow. And God just took her home then after all of that. So I was grateful she called. I was grateful we were able to connect, because these are trying times for anybody going through chemo when you cannot have family with you. Right. You can't have them go to your doctor's appointments or anything. And I was very blessed when I was going through my trials of mine that my doctor said, your husband is coming with you and I will make sure they let him in. Good. And they did. Wow. So that was a blessing to me that he got to go through that and talk with her and no more things going on.
Yeah. Are there any passages of scripture that have jumped out at you through this whole and been a comfort to you through this
One
process?
of the things, and I told a lady Sunday school class that I taught a few weeks ago, one of the things that I've struggled with is, I don't know, and it's just me maybe, but with the chemo, I could not read my Bible. And I had to listen to it. Okay. And I had challenged my ladies to even memorize scripture this last fall, thinking, oh, I can do this now. I'm done chemo. I can't memorize. And I praise the Lord for all the scriptures I learned as a child. Right. If you teach children, please encourage them to memorize. Thank you for saying because that. It's so important when I go through the day of scriptures that will jump out at me and oh yeah, I can remember that as a child. And then I can repeat it because I can remember it from as a child, but I cannot memorize it as of today. But my verse that I've always stuck to is Romans 8:28. And, you know, we know that all things work together for good. Right. And I have had to lean on that so many times through my life. But this last year especially, everything I've gone through, I have to just keep saying, okay, Lord, right, you're there. Romans 8:28. And that's just been my go-to.
What a comfort.
Yes.
You know, so many times those verses become well known because, you know, difficult circumstances, but it's so easy sometimes to just throw that out there, you know, Romans 8:28. But when you're going through a difficult time and you meditate on what that verse really means, that gives a lot of strength.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah. It does, because you are just so weak and your brain, as Amy has found out today, you have chemo brain for anybody who does not know. And I guess if you've ever been pregnant, it's a pregnant brain. Right. And it's the same type of thing. And your mind just thinks you've done things and you didn't do it. So I've had to deal with a lot of that. And I did not realize all the side effects that I would still have and will have for years to come. But it's going to be okay because God's there. It's all right. He's right by my side, and he's a comfort and a help and a blessing.
So you finished your chemo, and now basically you are doing things to boost your immunity, get your strength back. Okay.
Right. Because God threw in all these roadblocks to stop my radiation. They wanted to do the radiation, and I flunked the test, ladies. I just flunked. You know, they say breathe for 30 seconds. I can't breathe for 30 seconds. Or hold your breath for 30 seconds. I can't hold it. It doesn't work that way. But I said, no, And I took a few treatments, and then God said no and gave me COVID. So I said no again. And my doctor was not happy.
Yeah.
But I know I have perfect peace that is what he wanted me to do. I knew as soon as it came, I just knew that was it. I was done.
Well, it's a blessing when the peace of God so envelops you that it passes not just all understanding as in everybody else out there, but when it passes your own.
Right.
You know, and then you know, okay, he's got this no matter what comes. What are they telling you now? What is your prognosis for the future?
Well, I've had so many people ask me, and they will not give me a diagnosis as far as like you're cancer free. Apparently, you have to be 5 years out before they do cancer free. But I did have my mammogram Monday, and they said that it showed no new signs of anything.
Wonderful.
So that was a real blessing. That was a real thrill to get that. And so it's just a matter of I take a pill every day because I'm considered what they call estrogen positive, which is not a good thing. And so that's why I take this pill. And I was really grateful because there is a pill out there that they want you to take. And I'd had so many people tell me, don't take that, it's bad, it's bad for you. Well, you know, it's hard to explain that to a doctor.
Right.
And so when my oncologist called me and she said, well, you need to take such and such pill. And I said, and she goes, oh, wait a minute, you can't take that because you're an epileptic. You live on phenobarbital. And I said, correct. And she goes, well, you can't take this pill. And I said, oh.
So what a shame.
I said, what a shame. So then she put me on another one. So then I felt much better about it.
Good. That's wonderful. Well, I know just sitting here talking with you, it does seem to me that your energy is up and you're excited about life. And I know you still battle fatigue and some things like that. But what a miracle. What a work of the grace of God in your heart and in your life. And I want to thank you so much for being willing to do this today. This was such a treat.
Oh, thank you for asking. It's been my pleasure. It's not one of my normal things that I do.
Well, I know it's going to be a blessing to everybody who watches.
Well, thank you. And I do want to encourage the ladies, I don't know when this will air, but our live stream will be recorded and then put on our church YouTube channel.
Okay.
In another week or so. So
Wonderful.
It'll be up there and they can watch all of the sessions and everything.
Are previous years archived on there as well?
Oh, yes, they are. You're on
good
there.
To know. Oh, good. Well, don't watch me, but watch the others.
Right. It has been a wonderful thing to be able to do this for all these years. I can't believe that we've been here this many years and done this. Even when we think of 47 years, I keep thinking 47 years. That's a long time.
That is a long time.
But then I'm old.
Yeah. Well, you were talking in the beginning segment about people remembering the spectaculars, and if you're older, you'll remember that. And I thought, well, I'm old. I remember it.
Well, but you were younger when you got to go to spectacular.
I was just a kid in college.
Right. So therefore, it does. It makes a little bit of a difference.
It does.
And God was so good to us and so gracious to us in so many years, and so I'm just grateful that we have the opportunity to do just this little bit for other ladies to be able to enjoy.
Well, it's wonderful, and I appreciate all the work that goes into it. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope this has been a blessing to you, a strengthener to you. If you have endured your own battle with cancer or something that you're going through, comment below or message me privately. I know that Mrs. Vaprezsan would love to interact with you in some way if you'd like that. I know she does that for several women who have battled cancer. One of them she even talked about. And so don't hesitate to do that. If you need prayer or just someone to communicate with, we'd love to do that for you. But thank you again for watching. Hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Bye.